Insellmilkom, sinjuri, illum għandna intervista ma' Benoit. L-intervista sa ssir bl-Ingliż. Passoltu jekk għandkom xi kummenti ibatuhom fuq in-numru li jidher fuq l-iskrin permezz tal-WhatsApp. Thank you very much, Mari, for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Leah, but I'm not quite sure why I'm here. Not quite.
You're here to tell us a bit more about yourself. Tell me a bit about your childhood. Where were you born, Mari?
Well, Leah, I was born in Rabat, Malta, in the war. And I remember bombs coming down and my father wrapping me up and taking me to the shelter. We had a shelter in our house in Britannia Street. I remember it very clearly. And I did suffer. I was later told I suffered from nightmares because of the war. Because I remember the air raid warnings, and I remember the air raid warnings. I don't remember the bombs coming down. I remember the planes that, you know, going over the house.
Can you share some memories from your childhood? You're one of 5 children.
That's right. One of 5 children, 4 girls rather, and a boy. And my mother wanted a son. Absolutely, she had to have a boy, and therefore she had him when she was 46 years old. As we say in Maltese, "Mimmit ainea," you know. Memories, they were all happy memories. You know, life was quite simple, really. I mean, my father used to come for lunch. We used to have lunch, and then we used to go swimming, and dive for ritzy. We used to be able to play outside on our bicycle, on our scooters, on our tricycles. Life was much simpler. There were hardly any cars down our street in Slema. By then we had moved to Slema. And it was pleasant. We had a happy family. We said the rosary every day. We said the prayers before and after meals, and God forbid if you didn't. And life was simple, much simpler than it is today.
You were a very close-knit family and still are.
Yes, we are. We are a close-knit family. We support each other a lot, you know, when the need arises. And what can I say? Yes, we are close-knit, but one of us died. The youngest died, which is a great sorrow for us. She wasn't even 60. She was going to be 60 in a couple of months' time, and we were all preparing for her 60th birthday, and she passed away. So that was very sad, the young one, you know.
I'm sure many of our viewers remember her, because, I mean, she was very vivacious.
Yes,
so,
yes, she was.
To her memory, to Josette, because I remember her very fondly also.
That's right.
And what about your education?
Well, we were sent to the Sacred Heart. Even my brother Joe went to the Sacred Heart. So there were 5 of us at the Sacred Heart.
So there were boys at the Sacred Heart?
At the time, to a certain age, up to a certain age. And, you know, again, it was a happy childhood, very strong religiously, very strong discipline, which, looking back, I'm so happy for. And we were boarders most of the time. So we did everything there, our music lessons, our theory lessons, whatever we had to do. We did at school. This isn't like nowadays running around the place to take your children to this lesson, to the other lesson. No. We had our piano cells over there, and we had various teachers, and we did our music over there. I must say this, because you realize it when you, much later on, the nuns gave us a very good cultural education. Cultural. We did everything. We sang beautiful songs. We played the piano, a bit of languages, a bit of embroidery, which I used to love. You know, they touched on everything. Which gave us a good basis.
What about your education after Sacred Heart?
Leah, I had no further education after the Sacred Heart. I tried to get into university, but we were not prepared for university. We had no Latin, we had no Maltese. You know, at the time you had to have, there were 4 of us who wanted to become doctors, and we went to see the registrar, Mr. Patch, who died a long time ago, and he said, you have to have this, that, and the other. And we somehow never got around to doing it, you know. So that was the end of that. I then applied for a job at university. There was a call for applications for a typist, and I applied for a typist. I am perhaps one of the few women of my generation who've worked since the age of 17 until now. I'm now 80. I don't go out to work now, I work from home, but still.
Work seems to be a therapy for you.
Work is my identity. That's the whole thing. Work is my identity. It becomes your identity. So that's it. So that is, we fought for everything. My generation fought for everything. Now, when I look at the chances they have, you know, and at the Sacred Heart, it was an excellent school, and they taught us many things. However, we weren't made to work. We weren't educated to work. We were educated to be good wives, good mothers, good at cocktail parties. That's what we were really educated for, not to go out into the world of work. Don't forget, at the time, the church really was against women working. Až ty sfratta familja. That was the general message we got. No, forget about
So girls weren't given an opportunity from a very early age, really.
We were not taught the right subjects. I mean, then at school, when we said, you know, we realized this before, we said, can you teach us science? And they brought a science teacher from Talhanda, I remember, for a few of us.
So you were in London for some time?
I was in London. I was in London for 3 years. This was, librarians are like accountants. We have a professional qualification. So I got my professional qualification at the Polytechnic of North London, it was at the time. Now it's the University of North London or something. But I got my qualification there. But I had signed a contract. And I met my husband there. My husband-to-be, rather, and he was a British Council scholar, and he had a contract in Mauritius. So he waited for me for a year, and we wanted to get married. I came to Malta, he came with me, I worked for 6 months, and then they said, you can't leave, you have a contract, you cannot leave. And you know, I asked, but anyway, no help was forthcoming at the university. No, you cannot leave. So I said, okay then, you know, finally I left, but I left the money I had accumulated for all those years, because that's what they did for the women. They didn't give them a pension. And they said, you have to leave your money behind. I said, I leave my money behind, which was not fair, but I left. And we got married and we went to live in Mauritius.
Tell me a bit about your husband, Mari. What did he do?
My husband was city librarian of Port Louis, which was a very important library. I'm not saying this because it was. It's one of the bigger, there aren't many big libraries in Mauritius, but it was, in terms of local councils, it was the biggest library.
And life in Mauritius, what was it like? You had 2 children there?
Yes, I had 2 children. Meeting my husband and having my children was really the achievement of my life. I mean, really, when you look at anything else, what the hell did I achieve? Nothing. But
I think you've achieved a lot, really.
No.
But what you're saying is it was the highlight of your life.
This is the most important thing. But in Mauritius, life in Mauritius was comfortable. The culture shock is enormous. When I went to church, and you see a lot of the descendants of slaves in church, you know, you hardly see. Even the church was a bit, in a way, segregated. You had people who went to one church, one to another, but anyway. But the whole culture, when you see huts in Port Louis, still huts, you know, wooden houses which are now deteriorated. The culture shock is enormous. Of course, Mauritius has beautiful beaches, beautiful. I mean, it is about 3 or 4 times as big as Malta. It's lovely. I mean, there's so much countryside, of course, a lot of sugarcane as well. That, from that point of view, and of course, I had help. Now, I am no domestic goddess. I can tell you that much. Perhaps you know that. I mean, to me, okay, you know, you do a bit of dusting and I do it now, because I have very little help. But it was wonderful to be able to go home. The place is clean. I could leave my children, they were used to it, with one and the other one cleaned the house and did whatever had to be done, sometimes even cooked. So I was free. I was free to go to work. I was free to write very boring articles in professional journals. You know, very, I mean, boring, I can tell you, for encyclopedias. Mauritius was virgin land, you know. Most people had not written about Mauritius.
Most people who know you or read you know you've got very strong views about certain things, or most things, I have to say.
Yes.
Something that you feel very strongly about is the pro-life movement. Can you talk to me a bit about that?
Leah, I can't see it any other way. I cannot see any excuse for killing a fetus. Let me not call it a child, or they'll jump on me now. I don't see it. I mean, Dr. Miriam Shabaras is wonderful. There are many people like her. You know, what she did was establish a center so that mothers can have their babies over there. They are they go there with their babies. They can be looked after and put on their feet. Now, if you don't want your baby, and I do see that sometimes circumstances are such, you cannot have another baby. You don't want another baby, but I'm not going to say don't have sex, obviously not, but there are so many precautions nowadays. But should you conceive, you cannot then dispose of the child, because there are always people willing to adopt it. Always, you will always find some couple who will adopt the child. Always. I mean, we're going to India now for children to adopt. We used to go to Russia, don't forget. You see, but the rules changed. But we're going all the way to India to adopt a child. So we don't have our own children here. We don't adopt our own children. There are reasons. I'm not going to say there are no reasons. I mean, I know for certain that people won't adopt a Maltese child, because then the parents come round and say, give her back to me, or give it back to me, or I want to see her, I want money for you having it. I understand that. But there's always room for adoption, even after rape. What fault is it of the child that you were raped and that it was conceived? What fault? I am absolutely adamant. Any government, including the Labour government, with which, as you know and everybody knows, I have sympathy, okay, if they bring in adoption, I will be horrified, horrified. And I'm not the only one. There's a good following here. In that, we are still Christian. We cannot lose that. We cannot introduce legalized abortion. It is absolutely mad. I don't care what the rest of Europe does. I don't care. I really feel very strongly about it. There are a lot of arguments, and people say, let's discuss it. Discuss what? Discuss what? I am disgusted when women who have children as well, if you don't have any children, maybe you don't know what it's like to have a child. But when you've had a child, when you've conceived a child and brought into this world, you know what it's like. And you cannot say it isn't, if it's a tiny, from the start. There's a child conceived, once it's conceived, it becomes a child. And that's the end of it. It becomes a human being, and we have to protect it all the way. It's a must. There are no two ways about it. I am adamant about that, and I hope we don't go back on that, that we cannot legalize abortion. Those who want an abortion now, go. They find the money and go somewhere else. Let them. But once we legalize it, we're going to bring all the horrors in the world here. Everybody is going to say, I can go for an abortion. No, they can't. They can't just go to a doctor and have an abortion. No, not here. We're Christian. I want to emphasize that. I may not go to church. I don't, since my husband's death. I've quarreled with God. So I don't go to church. I believe still, and I pray. But that child, the conception is a child. What is it? What is it? No, it's a child. That has to be protected. And we are Christian, and we have to remain Christian. I have no doubt about that either. We have to fight for that, if need be.
So in your opinion, you don't see pro-life and abortion as a political issue?
Well, they can make it into a political issue. I mean, sometimes they have. But no, I don't. I don't see why should it be a political issue. I know I sound very conservative. I don't think we should be discussing it at all. What are we going to discuss murder? No. We cannot discuss murder. I mean, we cannot discuss that because it's murder. It's so simple. It's so simple because the mother is ill. But there are, I cannot recall now, but there are provisions. If a mother is dying or something, then something can happen. But there are no provisions if a child is handicapped that you can abort it. It's very difficult. I know people who have handicapped children, and we've all prayed not to have handicapped children. We've all prayed, you know. However, can we pick and choose? Can we say, my child is going to have spinal bifida, therefore I want it aborted? Can we pick and choose? Can we make ourselves into gods? I don't think we can. I don't think we should. And certainly I don't think any government should legalize. I don't give a damn what Europe says about all this nonsense which they're coming up with. You know, not only about abortion, about other issues as well, as you know. You know, I mean, you know, so we cannot change. We cannot, there's no way we can. Christianity began in Europe. We are a Christian, Europe is a Christian place. We have to retain that. We have to retain that and forget about abortion. Forget about abortion. I mean, all these women asking for abortion. I really am disgusted. You know, women of all, you understand a man who hasn't had a child, I mean, who hasn't brought forth a child, as the Bible says, but you cannot, you know. Because some people tell me, why are you interfering? I'm not interfering. How can I interfere? I'm not in government, you know, but I do think that any government which is even considering to get more votes, no, forget about the votes. Forget about the votes. And more people, we saw the Gozo divorce. Most Gozans were against divorce. Because there's more Christianity there, perhaps, than there is in Malta. No, so we cannot, no. That is, I feel adamant about that, you know. Finally, I got a job running the QPeep library, okay? And that was a town library of 54,000 inhabitants, not readers, inhabitants. And that had its own adventures because I went in after the cyclone Gervais, I got the job, and I went in to find absolute chaos, a lot of books lost, unfortunately. You know, it was a Carnegie library funded at the beginning by Carnegie.
Tell me about Ethiopia and your other travels.
I love these places, smelling of frankincense. The only thing is the poverty. The poverty, we can't believe it. We can't believe it. We can't believe that people with leprosy going around naked. But people come to your car, which we had diplomatic status there. They come to your car begging for money with a sheepskin, and then they open. Sort of, you know, they say, money, money. And you have to give it to them. The handicapped crawl under your car. Driving in Addis was a nightmare, a nightmare.
How long were you in Ethiopia for?
We were there for a year.
What about other African countries?
Yes, but my husband hated it. He hated it. He said, why is on earth are we living here and could be living in Mauritius? I don't care about the money. So we went back to Mauritius. Other African countries, well, I was lucky because teaching at university also gave me the chance to be in contact with international organizations like the German Foundation for International Development, with the Canadians who are very good to us, and be invited on all these conferences and seminars and deliver papers. For me, boring papers, I can tell you. But anyway, I did it. In fact, I am not really a librarian at heart. I never was. I remember Professor Beck, the professor of English at the University of Malta, telling me, Maury, come and do English with me, and I will send you to Oxford. It's a promise. But when you are young, at the time there were no jobs. And I thought, I leave my job, go and do English with him for 4 years, and then go to Oxford and start. Foolishly, I didn't take the opportunity.
Well,
But one thing I say, had I gone there, I wouldn't have met my husband. So that's how I concern myself.
what brought you back to Malta?
Leah, I came because of my husband's death at the age of 45. I stayed there for a year, thinking about it. Do I want to go back to Malta? Not really. Not really. I find Malta gossipy. I find Malta a world of half-truths. I find Malta, there's a lot of, what I don't like about Malta. There's a lot which I like about Malta, but there's a lot I don't like about Malta.
What don't you like about Malta?
I mean, everybody breathing down your neck, everybody wanting to know how you live. There's absolutely no privacy whatsoever. I mean, those are the things I dislike, everybody gossiping behind your back. You know, so I don't like it. And now with the blogs, it's even worse. You know, I mean...
Tell me your thoughts about the blog. Blogs.
Leah, what can I tell you about the blogs? There is good in them, no doubt about that. There's good in them, but there's an awful lot of bad in them. A lot of bad in them.
Tell me about the bad.
The bad. People trying to pull people down. It's a chance for everybody to have their say, which is good, good. There's there are no more gatekeepers as there were with the newspapers. You can't, they won't publish a letter for you, they won't publish this. Now, you can publish whatever you like. If the paper doesn't publish it, you can go to Facebook, and if you want to blog, you can have your own blog. However, what I don't like is that people take a chance to attack people they don't like, or whose politics they don't like, you know, and that is very harmful. Now that is one thing I don't believe in. I don't believe, because we need to encourage each other. We need empathy. We need compassion for each other. That's what we are here for. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, whenever you can. Not trying to put people down all the time. It's ridiculous.
Kienet zjara tant memorabli meta kont mistiedna flimkien ma' dituri oħra mir-reġjun Mediterran fl-istabbilimenti ta' Chanel. Kollox kien tal-ewwel klassi. Ftit snin wara dik iż-żjara, tifla tiegħi Camille organizzat sorpriża biex inżur l-appartament ta' Mademoiselle Coco Chanel f'Rue Cambon ġo Pariġi. L-appartament mhuwiex miftuħ għal pubbliku. Iffaxxinajt ruħi għax l-appartament ma bidluħx minn meta kienet għadha ħajja Coco Chanel. Niftakar l-iljuni Venezjani tad-deb, kaxxi tas-sigaretti imqaxxa b'mod kumpless ħafna. Skultura ta' idejn tad-deb minn Giacometti, żwiemel Ċiniżi tal-metall, xkafef ta' kotba minn ħajt għal ħajt, iskrivanija li kienet tuża Coco Chanel, iġġojjelli tagħha b'ħafna biċċiet li kienu rigali mill-maħbubin tagħha. Can I ask you, you've had personal attacks on yourself. Can we speak, for example, about the more recent ones without being specific? How do you feel when you're personally attacked? I'm speaking about the more recent ones.
Well, one thing I've learned, as writers, those of us who are writers of any kind, you know, have a great responsibility. Because whatever we write has its effect on others. Now, you can have a good effect and you can have a disastrous effect. Our job is to have a good effect. Absolutely. Now, the last one which was put up, I now am so immune. It doesn't bother me. But it would bother my daughters, yes. And maybe my family. Yes, but I am immune. I just don't care because I don't think these people are worth tuppenny worth of attention. I'm sorry, I don't. It's a pity because when they write about certain things, they are worth listening to, you know. But when they do that and open their own gates for people to be nasty to others, then anonymously, whenever I write on anything, I put my name down. I have never written a single comment, okay, without putting my name to it. I put my name down. I'm open. I cannot do otherwise. I don't have that kind of character. I want to be, this is mine, I own it, it's me. But then when you get a lot of people, sometimes it's probably the same person writing a lot of nasty things about somebody they dislike, you know. That's awful. It shouldn't be allowed. It shouldn't be allowed. That is how I look at it. Yeah.
Can we go back to when you returned to Malta and your career? I mean, can we speak about your career once you settled down? It took you some time to settle down, but you are the first in many ways. Tell us more about that.
After I came back, of course, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know. I had been teaching for 9 years at the University of Mauritius. I loved it. I'm not really a librarian to classify books and do all this rubbish. I don't. I mean, I never. Beck used to tell me, you are not a librarian. What the hell are you doing the librarianship for? By nature, I was not. But I grabbed the first opportunity which came for me to go and do a course without having to have a Maltese O-level or A-level or whatever. I didn't have it. So that was a great opportunity. I'm very thankful for Professor Birch Costanza for giving it to me. I'm very grateful to him. God rest his soul. So, after that, so what to do? I had been writing for the Sunday Times and for the Times since I was about 18. I'd always written something, you know, either amusing or interviewed people. I had interviewed the wives of the astronauts, for example, that kind of thing. And I had interviewed Danilo Dolci. I did quite a few interviews for them. I had interviewed, my most famous one was with Anthony Burgess, the writer of A Clockwork Orange and many more, because he lived here. He lived in Leah, and I used to visit him and his wife. And then I got him to, he accepted to be interviewed. At the time, interviewing was a big job because you had to go, you had to interview, then you had to transcribe it, then you had to go again just to make sure certain facts were all right. But I did it. I enjoyed going to them. Sometimes he used to cook for me and his wife and his son, Andrea, who spoke Maltese. And so it was a pleasure. Sometimes he used to be composing his music, because he was also a composer. So I did a lot of things. Now that interview was lately, to my utter surprise, published in a book I brought with me. In this book, it is Obscenity and the Arts. It's all about the arts and censorship, and they put my interview here. To my delight, it is edited by Germaine Greer.
Oh, wow.
Now, I'm a great reader.
Wow.
I used to be a great reader of feminine literature. I mean, I say the one who affected me most was Simone de Beauvoir. with her second sex, you know, and I read that, I said, my God, we are behind. What are we going to do about it? So this is, and Andrew Biswell, professor, who now runs the foundation. So I'm very happy that it is included in this book. Very happy, in fact.
Tell me what it was like when you were editor of the magazine that was so popular and you were writing your social column and doing so much.
Leah, I got into the Independent. What happened was, I wrote for the Sunday Times. I entered the competition, independent journalism, and won the competition. I finally joined the Independent, the editorial board, and then finally, I won't give you the details, but I joined the features. I became features editor of the Malta Independent, which was successful and which was very popular. It was a new newspaper, and it was #2 national newspaper. Probably still is now. So I joined, so I was told, I mean, this is a bit, writing was one thing, but I mean, going into all the technicalities, and of course, faced with a word processor, which I'd never seen in my life, was quite there.
Tell me about your really well-known social pages.
So there I started editing First magazine, which came out every month. I edited Galleria, which came every week. I started my own column, mostly social and cultural, not politics or anything like that, though I tried to put in a bit of politics now and then, but it was social and cultural. Sometimes I used to take photographs myself. I had my own little camera, because I was too impatient to wait until they were developed. That was the time. I was responsible for a lot of features. The monthly magazine. Galleria every week, which I used to have to take to be printed at the Nationalist Press, because we had nobody to do it. I used to deliver it. And we used to have at least one weekly supplement.
And I have to say, you're still writing. You still have your column in the newspaper.
Yeah.
What do you consider to be your biggest achievement?
My biggest achievement, my husband and children. Definitely. I mean, all else is really not that
How
important.
many years ago did your husband pass away?
In 1987.
And you still, I have to say, speak about him every day.
Absolutely, of course. What else? Yeah, what else? I mean, he was the most significant, apart from my parents, he was the most significant person in my life, and my children. And now, you know, I mean, yes, the most significant person. I feel very strongly about that.
And what about your regrets? Do you have any regrets?
Regrets? The death of my husband. I can honestly say, I don't even regret not taking those scholarships, because I would have had a different life, and I wouldn't have met him. You know, so to me, really, the only regret, unlike Piaf, je ne regrette rien, she must have regretted a few things. Her loves died, 2 of them. So, but
maybe she didn't feel attached to them as you do.
Maybe I'm sick. Maybe mine is pathological as well.
I don't think so.
You know, but those are my regrets.
What do you think life has taught you, Mari?
One thing for sure, you always have to be careful what you say, and in our case, what we write. We have to be very careful, because you never know what other people are feeling. Most of us have problems. Some of us can bear our problems better than others. Now, you can say something and cheer somebody up. You can say something and it will be the last straw. We have to encourage each other. I'm not being saintly in saying this, you know, but I believe, yes, I fully believe in it. And I don't mean you don't have to be a great saint. No. In our everyday lives, we can do little things for other people. Little things. They don't have to be, nobody need even know. Just little things to raise people up. Because we all need raising up. We all need encouragement. Jiena tkellem bl-Ingliż. U tkellem bl-Ingliż jiena l-Malti nafu nitkellmu l-Malta nħobba. Jiena I am very proud li jiena Maltija. Però għalija billi nikteb bl-Ingliż domt ftit barra u ma tantx nużaħ ħafna il-Malti għaliex it-tfal tiegħi nofshom Maltin, il-grandchildren kwarta Maltin. Allura nitkellmu ħafna bl-Ingliż. U grazzi ħafna ta' dawk li għadhom jaqraw li nikteb kultant. Nirringrazzjakom ħafna.
Grazzi, Sinjuri, li segwejtu dan il-programm illum, l-intervista ma' Mari Benoit. Passoltu ibatu kummenti, mistoqsijiet permezz ta' numru lider fuq l-iskrin. Jiena Lea Hogg għal Net TV u nixtieqilkom il-lejl tajjeb.
Erġa' segwi dan il-programm fuq Net on Demand.